The sun had barely risen over the red rooftops of Enugu when Adiz knew her life would never be the same again. That morning should have marked the beginning of a new chapter, a dream honeymoon in the Maldives, after the most lavish traditional and white wedding the town had seen in years. But as she stared down at the torn pieces of her international passport scattered on the marble floor, one truth rose above the shock like smoke from a burning house: not everyone rejoiced in her happiness. But how could she have known? How could she have imagined that the very woman who toasted her at the reception, who smiled for the photographers and called her "my daughter," had waited until the night before her trip to strike the most devastating blow? And yet, the real twist wasn't the betrayal, it was what the airline staff said the next morning. It was what they revealed that changed everything. Adiz's marriage to Emeka had been both a whirlwind and a miracle. At 27, she was a self-made entrepreneur running a successful skincare brand that started from her mother's kitchen. Emeka, the calm and brilliant son of a retired colonel, had fallen for her not just for her beauty, but her ambition and grounded nature. Their courtship had been relatively short, just under a year. Still, their love felt deep, solid. Except, of course, for the silent cloud that hung over every family gathering: Emeka's mother, Mama Rose. From the beginning, Mama Rose had been cold, not openly cruel, just dismissive. She was a woman of old customs and stiff pride. She believed a good wife came from certain families, political, connected, elite. Adiz, despite her success, didn't come from that cloth. Her father had been a headmaster. Her mother sold fabric in Ogbit Market. Not disgraceful, but not elite either. The night before the honeymoon, Adiz had gone to the family house to drop off thank you souvenirs. Emeka had a last-minute errand to run and told her to wait there. He'd pick her up later so they could go straight to the hotel near the airport. She hadn't seen Mama Rose when she entered. The housekeeper was out, the compound unusually quiet. It was when she went upstairs to freshen up that she entered Emeka's old room and found Mama Rose sitting silently on the bed, holding something. Adiz froze. "Good evening, Ma," she said, her voice polite, cautious. Mama Rose didn't respond. Instead, she slowly lifted her hand. In it, Adiz saw it, her passport. Opened to the ID page. Then, with eyes locked on hers, Mama Rose ripped it. 1. Tear. At a time. Adiz gasped. "Mama. Why?" "I warned Emeka. You think your beauty can cover your emptiness? You are not one of us. I thought maybe marriage would humble you. But now you're taking him to Europe to shame me with Instagram photos. You are not going anywhere." Adiz lunged for the torn pages, but Mama Rose dropped them on the floor, stood, then walked past her like a ghost. Heart pounding, Adiz picked up the scattered remains. No yelling. No tears. Just a surreal silence around her. Was this truly happening? By the time Emeka arrived, Mama Rose had already retired to her room, pretending to be asleep. Emeka was furious, but his mother had always been skilled at weaponizing silence. She denied nothing. She simply said, "If she belongs with you, she'll find her way. Or maybe this is the sign you needed." The next morning, they went to the airport regardless. The torn passport stuffed in Adiz's handbag, taped at the seams like a wounded body. Their flight was in 3 hours. The airline counter bustled with honeymooners, families, and business travelers. Emeka held her hand tightly, his grip trembling. They approached the desk. The staff, a woman in her mid-40s with a soft face and calm voice, asked for their documents. Adiz hesitated, then handed over the taped-together passport, explaining what had happened in a shaky voice. The woman didn't laugh. She didn't scold. She looked at Adiz, then at Emeka, then back again. "What's your name again?" she asked gently. "Adiz Nwanko." The woman opened her drawer, pulled out a folder, and handed them a form. Then she said the words that sent chills through Adi's bones. "You're not the first. We've seen this before. Especially here. But do you want to hear something interesting?" Adiz nodded slowly. The woman leaned in. "We recently partnered with an immigration liaison for cases like yours. There's a temporary solution. We can grant you a provisional travel certificate for situations where emotional or domestic sabotage prevents immediate travel. But you'll need to tell the truth. And once you do, it will go on record permanently." Adiz blinked. "What do you mean?" The woman's eyes darkened. "It means, if you report this, your mother-in-law's name will be tied to this file. Should anything happen to you, there'll be a trace. It's protection, but also exposure." Emika looked stunned. "Why does the airline even care?" "Because," the woman said, "we've seen women miss their honeymoons, jobs abroad, scholarships, all because someone ripped a passport. And none of them ever came back to report it. We are tired." The silence between them stretched. Adiz stared at the form. In that moment, she had a choice: protect Mama Rose's image, or protect herself. She took the pen. Adiz signed the form with steady hands, though her heart raced like a drum in her chest. The airline staffer nodded quietly, took the form, and made a copy. Within 20 minutes, a representative from immigration arrived. He reviewed the documentation, checked her visa status, and after a few formalities, handed her a folded document marked "Emergency Travel Clearance." "This will only be valid for 7 days, he explained, "but it gets you on the plane. When you return, report to the passport office immediately." "Thank you," Adiz whispered. Emika looked at her with admiration and something else, guilt. They boarded the plane in silence. While others giggled and took selfies in the aisle seats, Adiz leaned against the window, her mind worrying. The betrayal still felt fresh, raw. She hadn't even had time to cry. On the second day of the honeymoon, as the white sands of the Indian Ocean lay under their feet, Emika broke the silence. "I don't know what to say," he began. "I'm ashamed." "You should be," she replied, not with venom, but weariness. "You saw the signs. You ignored them. She's my mother. She tried to ruin our future." There was a long pause. "I want to cut her off," Emika said. Adiz turned to him, lips parted in disbelief. "You can't." "Not really. But you can set boundaries. Real ones. The kind that come with consequences." He nodded, slowly. "I'll start by moving us out of her house. I'll support you filing that official statement when we return. No more protecting her image." That evening, as they lay under a woven bamboo cabana sipping chilled coconut water, Adiz thought about the other women the airline staffer mentioned. The ones who'd suffered quietly. Whose lives had been detoured or destroyed, not by strangers, but by people who smiled in public and sliced dreams behind closed doors. "I'm going to tell my story," she said out loud. "Like a blog post?" Emika asked. "No. Bigger. I want to talk about it, what happened. Not to shame your mother. But to warn others. To make sure girls like me know what to do when love comes with silent war." Emika reached for her hand. "I'll be with you every step." But even as he said it, Adiz knew this wouldn't be an easy road. Some would say she was ungrateful. Others would claim she was exaggerating. But silence had done enough damage. This wasn't just about a ripped passport. It was about the right to dream freely, even in a world that sometimes sees strong women as threats. Back in Nigeria, the moment Adiz stepped into the passport office to formalize her statement, she felt the weight of 1,000 invisible eyes. The room was cold with bureaucracy, but her resolve was fierce. She handed over the documents, told the officer her story clearly, and confirmed her desire to file a permanent record. Emika stood by her side, quieter than usual. Supportive, yes, but burdened. It wasn't easy watching one's own blood be implicated in such bitterness. But Addis had made it clear, silence was no longer love. Silence was complicity. When the official file was signed and sealed, the officer looked up at her and said something that stayed with her forever. You just gave other women permission to stop suffering quietly. The story didn't end in legal drama. Mama Rose was never arrested. But things changed. She was confronted not by Addis but by her own community. The truth filtered through extended family, church circles, and friends. At first, she denied it. Then she shifted blame. Finally, she retreated into quiet embarrassment. But Addis didn't gloat. She didn't use the story to tear down. Instead, she used it to build. She launched a digital campaign called Paper, Not Permission, highlighting women across Africa who'd lost opportunities to sabotage, banned documents, withheld approvals, demotional manipulation. Stories poured in. And so did support. Her following grew, not because she was a victim, but because she became a voice. Emika kept his promise. They moved into their own home, away from Mama Rose's influence. The distance wasn't easy. Blood ties are hard to stretch. But for the first time, boundaries were clear. The most powerful moment came a year later. At a women's summit in Abuja, Addis was invited to speak. She stood before a packed hall, ministers, activists, students, mothers. She shared her story from beginning to end. And as she closed, she looked into the crowd and said, "We are told to keep peace at all costs. But peace that asks you to shrink isn't peace, it's a leash. A mother-in-law. A teacher. A spouse. A boss. If anyone uses love to clip your wings, you must ask, is it really love?" The room stood in silence, then burst into applause. That night, as she sat by her window back home, the memory of her torn passport returned. Not as a scar, but as a symbol. Because sometimes, the thing meant to stop you is the very thing that pushes you to fly. Her story became more than a personal tale, it became a mirror. A reminder that control doesn't always come with fists, sometimes it comes wrapped in respectability. But Addis' choice to speak, to resist, gave other women the strength to question, to walk, and to rebuild. Love without respect is manipulation. And silence in the face of sabotage is its accomplice. The cost of keeping the peace should never be your freedom.